Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to respond to some of the questions that were asked during the public portion of this, and also to perhaps give some explanation and perhaps educate everyone here listening tonight as to the progress we're attempting to make at the county level with regard to housing for our homeless population. I'm a member of the Broward County Continuum of Care Board, and a lot has gone on at that board with regard to the issue of housing individuals who are homeless. One of the issues that had come up recently was the possibility of using the facility on Powerline Road, which was previously used by the Sheriff's Department to satisfy the federal government's mandate as rendered by a federal judge, saying that the jails in this county cannot reach a certain, once they reach a certain capacity, we need to have a facility to handle the overflow population. We have not experienced the demand for that in over 5 years, according to the Sheriff's Department. And in fact, it's this very Sheriff's Department that is advocating the use of the stockade to house the homeless population. The philosophy behind that is very simple. We have a large homeless population that is yet to be served by dollars that come from either federal, state, or local funding. So that population remains on our streets, exposed to elements, and often those are the ones that are most in need. Excuse me. So the Sheriff's Department has stepped forward and has recommended to the Continuum of Care Board, which has since recommended to the Broward County Commission, that we use the stockade because at least it puts a roof over someone's head. Right now, we have hundreds of people who do not have that to look forward to each night. And yes, there are restrooms there 24/7, and yes, it wasn't intended as a housing solution for our homeless, but it could be a temporary solution until we're able to find sufficient funding in order to accommodate the need of all the homeless people in our community. There are definitely going to be shortcomings at this facility, and one of the shortcomings is the fact that the services that are often provided to homeless people are not located there. So there has been discussion about relocating the service centers up there, so that if we do find that the concentration of population amongst the homeless makes its way to that area, that it would behoove the community to move the services there, or at least have a branch opportunity to also have services rendered from there, as well as other locations throughout the city, in order to help the homeless population. I think that this community is very much committed to helping the homeless. We have many programs within our city, we have programs within the county, and we have funding through the federal government. In particular, the Housing First program that's been mentioned tonight, that's completely funded by the federal government. And yes, that seems to be the answer to many for trying to house the homeless. But it has been taught to me through sessions that I've participated in at the Continuum of Care Board that we are far short of the necessary funding in order to accommodate and fulfill the goals of that program. So in the meantime, what can we do to help the homeless? And so it has been suggested that we try to repurpose the stockade in order to help people put a roof over their head, and so that we don't allow them to continue to be exposed to the elements of South Florida, which can be very harsh, as many people know. So I support this measure because it is the majority opinion of the Continuum of Care Board, and it will send a signal to the Broward County Commission that we are on board with the general sentiment that we need to find a place for those who can't help themselves, and that is the homeless population. So I would move the item, Mayor, and
it's actually been moved and seconded.
And I would support the item,
Can I make one comment?
I'm going to let everybody. All right, so the public hearing has been closed. We close the public hearing, call the roll call on closing the public hearing. Then I'm going to let everybody speak.
Vice Mayor McKenzie.
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers.
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Commissioner Trantelis.
yes.
Mayor Siler.
Yes, now Romney.
All right, so 8-10 months ago, Lee Feldman and I had the opportunity to tour the stockade. Essentially, it's a 10-acre site of unutilized jail cells, and the county is supposedly going to repurpose some of it to act as somewhat of a halfway facility for those folks leaving prison and not yet integrated back into the community. The sheriff was a proponent of making this a day facility to the extent of having a place, a shelter that could utilize a congregation of service providers and then help anyone that needed those service providers to get that help back on their feet. I still don't understand why the county commission has pushed back on this. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's in our city. We have supported it, and we're going to continue to support it, I believe. And it's quite frustrating when you would hope that there'd be more collaboration on this issue. So I'm extremely supportive of this, and I'm hopeful that we can get some more support through other cities, through community leaders and the like, and that eventually we can have a facility that actually helps people that need help. So that's my position on it.
Thank you, Romney. Robert? Bruce?
Yeah, just a few comments. I mean, I agree with what you guys said. I think, and you put it best also when you said it's really meant to be a temporary housing facility to provide service to be able to land people in more permanent housing, because there just isn't the resources out there to do that. And Pastor, I think you mentioned, and maybe I misunderstood you, but it's not just the county isn't the only one that participates in Housing First. We participate in Housing First. In fact, I think we just got our second grant for $400,000 and some. So that's 2 years in a row that we've gotten $400,000. I'm just commenting on your comments. $400,000 2 years in a row. And oftentimes these programs are not just purely the program associated with the county or the city. They often overlap working together. And Housing First is a good example of that. And our proposal for activating the stockade is another proposal to work together with the county on this. And as we said, it is the county's responsibility to do this, not the city's responsibilities. Fort Lauderdale has more than stepped up to try to accommodate and take care of its homeless population through the initiatives I just mentioned there too. But I just wanted to mention that the Housing First, we are going through a second round of that, and it's a good program for us. And it talks about the type of initiatives that you wanted to have done. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Bruce. Before we vote, let me just comment. First of all, Dean, thank you for your service on that continuum of care. I know you have been a voice for the cities, and I know a lot of other members of that continuum of care supported this idea. And it's frustrating when a good idea like this comes forward at the continuum of care, and people seem to try to want to work against it. But I want to thank you for your leadership on this. Romney, I think your comments were also on point. I thought that here we are trying to come up with a solution, not a long-term solution, a short-term solution, but to try to move forward. And it's just frustrating to get opposition, especially when it's not like us, it's not like we are taking a position saying we'll move it somewhere else. We're moving it in the city of Fort Lauderdale. This is not a, not in my backyard approach. This is, hey, the city of Fort Lauderdale is willing to step up, is willing to approve this within the city limits, willing to, work with everybody to have it be within the city limits, and really to be the host community for this. And I'm just frustrated that when we stepped up to do this, we're getting pushback, and some of them, some of the pushback just seems, well, we just want to say no, or it's a bad idea. We're not sure why, but we're just going to get opposition to it.
There are two reasons, if I can step in here just a second. The first reason is because they feel that the federal court mandate that we have a facility for the overflow capacity at our city jails should be always available. And by taking it away and housing homeless people in the stockade, that runs
Right.
cross purposes. However, Sheriff's Department has stated quite plainly that we have not had that problem in over
In
5
years,
years.
right.
And that we're not looking to take over the entire stockade, it's just a part of the
Nor have they
stockade.
done the math, because the math of 700 to over 700 and some beds does not flip back to the percentages needed to house potential overflow, which hasn't existed for 5 years, so the math hasn't been done properly.
Correct.
Right.
Certainly the opposition, I think, is not well-founded, in my opinion. But let's look at another issue. One of the issues was, well, it's not accessible. Well, one, it's within the city of Fort Lauderdale. Two, it's on the bus route. It is actually on the regular bus route, so that it is accessible and affordable. And then, Bruce, I just want to comment. I know, a lot of times people offer to do this in their district. This is in your district. And you stepped up and took a leadership role to do this within your district. I want to thank you for doing that. So, and the last thing I'll bring up, and it just shows you where sometimes you get frustrated. I mean, we recognize this is the county's responsibility. The city of Fort Lauderdale does more than any other city in terms of expenditures in this area, but it is the county responsibility. They have direct funds that come to them for this purpose. But the interesting thing is the county just approved, I think, a $16 million shelter for animals. And it's a substantial shelter, but they did. They just approved a $16 million shelter for animals. And I think that's a very worthy cause, and I'm glad they did. My dad's a veterinarian. We have a lot of pets in our house. But I would think you'd at least want to make a commitment of a like amount or more to deal with homeless individuals on our streets. I think obviously we care very deeply for our animals, but we should care very deeply for the individuals in the community. So you're going to make that kind of commitment towards the animals. It can certainly be done with fellow members of the human race. So I would hope that the county would join us in this effort to do the right thing. Again, Fort Lauderdale taking the step to say do it within the city of Fort Lauderdale. We welcome it. We'll work with you. And with that, I'll call the roll.
Oh, he actually introduced the
I think
resolution.
Dean did.
I'll introduce it.
Okay. This is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, declaring support for the use of the Broward Sheriff's Stockade facility located at 5400 Powerline Road, Fort Lauderdale, as a community center that provides access to services and housing options for persons experiencing homelessness in Fort Lauderdale. Vice Mayor McKenzie.
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers.
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Commissioner Trentalis.
Yes.
Mayor Siler.
Yes, and by your vote, that passes. And I want to thank everybody that came out to speak in support and in opposition. We appreciate the dialogue on this. Next up is